I was privy to pretty much most of that because I was sitting at a table, a little card table in the back of the Wonderland, which was a Greyhound racetrack park that we ran in Lowell, Massachusetts, right in the outskirts of Boston. And I was sitting there talking with Paul, and Taz was sitting there. Me, Taz, and Paul were sitting there talking. And Mass Transit came in with one of the midgets. I forget which midget it was, but he came in, and the midget said to Paul, "Hey, I've got this kid. You know, if you can get him on the show, I'd really appreciate it," that kind of thing. And Paul started at Taz had left by this point, and the midget and Mass Transit sat down, and Paul started asking Mass Transit questions. How old are you? He said he was 18 or 19. It was of legal age, whichever it was. It was either 18 or 19. He'd asked him if he'd been trained. He said yes, he'd been trained by Killer Kowalski for 2 years. He asked him if he had any aversion to wrestling New Jack, that he had one opening on the card, and the kid said that he had no problem with that. Paul asked him if he'd ever gigged, and he said that he had no problem doing it, that he wasn't afraid to do it, that he had done it, and that was it. And, then some short period later, Chris and I and Bam Bam, we used to dress, it was a back hallway behind, I guess during regular operating hours, there was a concession stand there, and then there were some bathrooms and some hallways. Me and Chris and Bam Bam always dressed down at the end of the hall in one of the bathrooms. I think it was the ladies' room, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, closed off to the public at that time. And Tammy and Francine, of course, would dress in there with us. And we were back in there, and I remember this like a whole lot of fracas going on, and there was a lot of running around and stuff. And I came down to see what was going on. I didn't know if there was a fight going on in the building or what. And when I got down close to the gorilla position, the entrance, I saw the kid's dad, just panicking. This is my fucking son. What the fuck is going on? That kind of just going crazy. And I looked out at ringside, and security was out there. The EMTs that we had working with us there locally were out there. All I saw was they had a towel on the kid. And my first thought was he must have broken an ankle or broken a wrist or something. And then, as a few seconds went by, I could see they were holding the towel on his head. Now the towel, a full-size towel, is now, crimson red. So within a matter of 30 seconds, this white towel is now dripping wet red with blood. And, quickly you can surmise what's going on and what's happening. And they got the kid onto a stretcher and brought him back. And I remember the kid coming back, and he was scared, but he was more, he kept asking, did I do okay? Did I do okay? That he was, I think more interested in hearing that, that he had done well. And, but the amount of blood, I remember I walked out the ringside as this was all going on, and there was it looked like somebody had been murdered in the ring. There was a huge puddle of blood. And like I said, the towel was dripping blood, and there was a trail of blood where they brought him back on the gurney and through. The kid was losing a substantial amount of blood. And, we all know the story as to what happened, and it just always seemed, to bring this conversation full circle with what we talked about Dominic and, the professionalism that was trained into us. Where I come from in the business, you don't take advantage of somebody, whether they've been trained or not, whether they're 25 years old or 15 years old. You just don't do something like that to somebody. And, of course, a couple of years later, the kid then dies. And there's all sorts of, another conspiracy theory is that, the kid dies a couple of years later, and, you start to hear the rumor that it relating to this kid being in a depression based off of what happened that night. Uh, I've never seen a death certificate, but the kid wasn't exactly svelte. It wasn't like he was in the best of shape. I don't want to sound trite or that like I'm suggesting that he deserved it or whatever happened happened. But I think this is one of those places where, like with the conspiracy theory, you could look and say, well, based off of what I personally know, what I heard the kid saying to Paul, answering Paul's questions beforehand, he had certainly been misleading to Paul on his age, on his training, on the fact that he had gigged before, and things happened, and that's sometimes, like I said earlier with the conspiracy theory, sometimes things do just happen, and there is no full explanation. And to me, that was one of those things that happened based off of the pieces of information that I had in the building, and I had, like I said, a front row seat, no pun intended, to what this kid had parlayed to Paul as far as information, and then this thing happening a short time later, just he got called on his lies, because it's pretty hard at that point then to try to lie, especially if you're going to file a lawsuit. Now it's going to come out that you're actually not 18, that you've not been trained, et cetera, et cetera.